High blood sugar is the primary driver of heart disease, of Alzheimer's, of arthritis, of our other degenerative diseases. And so it's all about sugar and almost nothing to do with cholesterol. The key to good health is to control your blood sugar.
Hey, thank you for watching my show, and I'm glad you're back. I'm Amalia, and you're on Growth Factor right now. And no, you are not looking at a comic book character. This is Dr. Anthony Chafee, and while he looks like Superman, he is a neurosurgeon. He's a former professional rugby player, and he began college at the age of 15.
We need to remember that our brains are made out of fat. About 70-80% of the solid matter of our brain is fat and cholesterol. And 20% of that fat is DHA, right? These are fats that only exist in animal products. Another bit of a clue that we really need animal products in our diet.
I had this patient with schizoaffective disorder. He had been my patient for 8 years. Schizoaffective disorder is a cross between schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. This man was tormented and disabled by his illness. He had chronic hallucinations, delusions. He was convinced that everybody in the world was out to get him. People were laughing at him, spying on him, trying to hurt him. He had tried 17 different medications. None of them helped his symptoms. He had gained a massive amount of weight and asked for my help to lose weight. And I put him on a ketogenic diet. And the shocking thing that led me ultimately on this path was that about 2 months in, he starts spontaneously reporting that his hallucinations and delusions are starting to go away. That man went on to lose over 160 pounds, has kept it off to this day, 7 years later. He was able to do things he hadn't been able to do since the time of his diagnosis. He was able to go out in public and not be paranoid. He was able to perform improv in front of a live audience. He teaches karate. Initially, I was just in disbelief. Schizoaffective disorder doesn't get better. What on earth is the ketogenic diet doing? It's actually a 100-year-old evidence-based treatment for epilepsy, and it can stop seizures even when medications fail to stop seizures. There's an entire body of literature in the neurology field on how the ketogenic diet stops seizures, including changes in neurotransmitters, changes in the gut microbiome, decreasing inflammation. But one thing stuck out at me. It improves mitochondrial function, which basically means it improves brain metabolism. We, for decades, have been accumulating this evidence, and nobody to date has really put it all together and have it fit and have it make sense. Once you understand that science, it leads to solutions that may actually help people heal and recover from disorders that we are currently telling people are lifelong, incurable disorders.
Does the keto diet specifically work, or a carnivorous diet? And is that the best of all possible intercessional diets?
Nobody in the medical field is going to believe that a diet could change something as devastating as schizophrenia.
This kind of hypothesizing has gone beyond the merely anecdotal.
So anybody who wants to say, well, this is just anecdotal, no, it's way beyond anecdotal evidence now at this point.
The diet that my daughter has been promoting, the lion diet.
Beef, lamb, bison, salt and water.
Use of such diets can not only reduce the effect of potential toxins on mitochondrial function, but also increase mitochondrial metabolism and also help the body heal. This kind of hypothesizing has gone beyond the merely anecdotal to the point where there is a tremendous amount of research supporting the proposition that dietary factors play a major role in the genesis of such severe mental disorders, and not only mental disorders, also physical disorders like obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes.
We have more than enough science for me to be able to say it is very clear and understandable why your daughter experienced such tremendous health benefits by doing the diet that she did. It is not quackery. People accuse, I actually
no wonder,
know your daughter, and
I mean, because it's so preposterous. Like it took us a long time to swallow the fact that she couldn't eat anything, and my wife and I basically have the same diet. I mean, it's a very radical solution, and everyone should be skeptical of radical solutions. But the reason that we concluded that it was worthwhile, let's say, to publicize the carnivorous diet is because if you just eat beef, that's all you're eating. It's one thing, and you can do that for a long time. As we know from the Inuit, for example, and the Mazah, you can live virtually virtually forever on a carnivorous diet. Now, the advantage to that seems to me to give you the optimal chance to experiment. Because when we played with like the FODMAP diet.
FODMAP, yeah.
FODMAP diet, right? Well, it made no sense logically, and there were still things within it that looked very contradictory.
I agree that a carnivorous diet may in fact be the gold standard elimination diet to see if a change in dietary pattern can produce the health benefits that a person is seeking.
So you could try a carnivorous diet. If it worked, you'd know that diet is a reason. And then knowing that it worked and being in a condition where now you've recovered to some degree, you could conceivably add foods back one by one and see if you could regenerate the symptoms.
The reason I'm hesitant to recommend it for everybody is because I already know the nutrition experts will vilify me along with you and Michaela and others.
Yeah.
And so I want to throw them a bone.
Are those the same experts that recommended the food pyramid?
The pyramid doesn't work. We've already tried it.
It's upside down.
What?
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Don't even get me
sure.
started on that, because that food pyramid really messed up my own personal health. So for the people who say, well, no, there's no way I'm only going to eat meat, then I want to at least meet them where they're at and say, fine, you don't have to only eat meat. There are lots of options. You know, the carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet, but there are other variations of ketogenic diets. Water-only fast would be the most drastic intervention, but again, you can't fast for too long because you're going to starve to death, and I wouldn't want to do that in an underweight person. And the second best version is exactly what you've described, the Lines diet, which is just meat, beef alone. It's enough nutrition to sustain a human. There will be people already, I can hear people already saying fiber.
Yeah.
Fiber is really good, Dr. Palmer. How dare you get rid of fiber? If somebody's really in trouble with serious symptoms, or if somebody just wants to do maybe a 1 month or 3 month experiment to see, will this improve my symptoms? I would actually encourage people to give it 3 months.
Right. That's about what we've concluded too. It's about 3 months.
Do a carnivore diet, therapeutic ketogenic diet. I can solidly stand behind the ketogenic diet because we have an enormous evidence base, cell biology models to human clinical trials of ketogenic diets for seizures, weight loss, type 2 diabetes, for type 1 diabetes, kidney disease, for cancer, and other conditions. And we have good evidence that a ketogenic diet can, in fact, be safe, can be highly effective for many of those conditions. But I don't disagree with you in terms of what you're saying about the carnivore diet and some of the benefits.
Well, also I should say too, like as a behavioral psychologist, I mean, there's no sense suggesting something to someone they won't do.
Exactly.
And so if you can generate a plethora of alternatives, some of which aren't quite so extreme and they might work, more power to you. Mitochondria play a role in the switching on and off of genes like they do in the switching on and off of inflammation and the production of hormones and neurotransmitters. So that's another reason why delving into the cell down to the level of the mitochondria is a good place to be looking for the common pathway that we're searching for with regards to the generation or the initiation of mental illness.
At least 90% of the food that we consume ends up inside mitochondria. So mitochondria are the processors of food. They convert it into ATP, which is the power unit of the cell. Our bodies are, in fact, composed of food that we ate. Mitochondria help create, regulate, and release neurotransmitters, including serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, GABA. And in fact, those neurotransmitters then impact mitochondrial function. So it's a two-way street.
My family has been experimenting a lot with a radical keto diet, and that's an all-beef diet with salt. One of the most reliable treatments for arthritis, and this works with virtually everyone, is if you fast, your arthritis goes away. Now, the problem is it comes back when you eat anything. So then you might say, well, if you were going to investigate a potential dietary link with pathology, you'd want to find the simplest possible diet that could actually sustain you over some reasonable period of time.
Definitely carnivore.
It eradicates a tremendous number of variables.
A ketogenic diet is actually tricking the body into thinking that it is fasting when it isn't fasting.
Oh, that's very interesting. And so you also get the advantages of autophagy,
Absolutely.
self-devouring.
Boom. This kid gets brighter every time I see him.
To trick the body into thinking that it's fasting, get those benefits of fasting, but not have the people starve to death. And like you said, is there a way to actually provide adequate nutrition and thrive? And so it was the ketogenic diet. And what that's really doing is it's actually changing metabolism in the entire body, dramatically reducing inflammation, highly upregulating autophagy, something called mitophagy, which is mitochondrial repair. It's getting rid of old and defective cells. It's getting rid of old parts. And then when you eat, replacing them with new ones. And that can actually have profound healing potential independent of whatever you were eating. Healthy diet or an unhealthy diet or anything in between.
Okay. We need periods of eating and not eating. And the not eating periods are the repair periods. And so in a culture like ours, where you can eat any damn thing you want all the time, and everyone does, what that implies is that not only are we making ourselves obese and increasing our proclivity to diabetes at a rate that's absolutely staggering, but we're also perhaps never allowing ourselves to enter into the biological condition that's associated, as you said, with the repair processes that go all the way down into the cellular.
Every culture on earth, just about, has used fasting as a healing intervention for millennia.
Are there benefits to ceasing food intake altogether that can't be accrued from merely eating, let's say, a carnivorous or a keto diet?
There are. Fasting is, in fact, different than maybe the carnivore diet. So sometimes you can do a fast, get some healing or repair or just a reboot, if you will, to stimulate autophagy, reduce risk for cancer based on this science. Your daughter is a perfect example of somebody who might be sensitive, and she may do best with an all-meat diet and a very simple diet. Your daughter has put out amazing information for people, very practical step-by-step instructions for people who want to try her dietary pattern to see if it might help them. It is very clear and understandable why your daughter experienced such tremendous health benefits by doing the diet that she did. Anybody who says, well, that's just an anecdote, I would want you to push back and say, no, actually, there are clinical trials underway that is progressing through the oncology field already. That ketogenic and other dietary interventions can slow the progression, can actually shrink tumors. For me, as a professional, it started with that anecdote. It is no longer in the realm of anecdote anymore. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of patients with bipolar disorder, with schizophrenia, with chronic unrelenting depression, with OCD, with anorexia nervosa, who are coming out of the woodwork, sharing their stories of recovery and remission. Some of these people are able to get off all of their psychiatric meds and remain in remission. So anybody who wants to say, well, this is just anecdotal evidence, no, it's way beyond anecdotal evidence now at this point.
My sense is that with the really severe mental disorders, intractable depression, as mental health professionals, as physicians, our primary assumption at the moment should be that these are metabolic related or other physiological disorders until there is compelling proof otherwise.
100%.
Is the story of a 70-year-old woman who had chronic paranoid schizophrenia for 53 years. Why don't we start there, if you wouldn't mind?
I'm going to actually use her real name because she gave me permission to use her real name. In the book, I call her Mildred, but her real name is Doris. And Doris had a horrible childhood. She had a lot of PTSD, depression, other things. By the time she turned 17, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. She had daily hallucinations and delusions. Over the ensuing decades, she tried numerous antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and other medicines. None of them worked to stop her symptoms. She slowly but surely gained massive amounts of weight. And, by the time she was 68, she was miserable, hated herself, hated her life. From the ages of 68 to 70, she tried to kill herself at least 6 times and was hospitalized for those suicide attempts. And at the age of 70, she was referred to a weight loss clinic at Duke University, where they were using the ketogenic diet as a weight loss method. And she decided to give it a try for whatever reason. And within 2 weeks, not only did she begin losing weight, but she spontaneously reported that her long-standing auditory hallucinations were going away. Within months, all of her symptoms of schizophrenia were in full and complete remission. Within 6 months, she was off all psychiatric medications and remained in full and complete remission. Doris went on to live for another 15 years. She lost 150 pounds, so the weight loss thing was secured, but much more important, she remained symptom-free from symptoms of schizophrenia. She remained off psychiatric medications. She remained out of psychiatric hospitals. She never tried to kill herself again. And when I last spoke with her, she actually said she was happy to be alive. She attributed her recovery primarily to God, that she really felt that it was a miracle from God. And she asked me to tell her story far and wide to anyone who would listen, in the hopes that it might help even one other human being spare the suffering she endured for decades.
For 23 years, all dermatologists could offer me were steroid creams, UV therapy, and antibiotics. When they stopped working for me, they offered me Dupixent injections, a lifetime dependency on drugs. What if I told you you could heal yourself naturally? No drugs, no medicine. This was me 100 days before healing. This is me today. You see, Western medicine doesn't address the root cause of the eczema. Steroid creams and Dupixent are just masks, band-aids. The problem lies in the gut. The chemicals and the anti-nutrients in the food you are eating are penetrating your gut lining, alarming your immune system, which is causing the eczema on your skin. In 100 days, by changing my diet, I went from dying to the most healthy I've ever been in my life. I was born with eczema. Today, I am free.
How did I go from a sick Crohn's disease patient to benching 250, being pain-free, and packing on muscle with ease? Let me explain. I was so sick from Crohn's disease 4 years ago, I had constant stomach pain, was unbearably tired, and a skeleton at 5'11". I couldn't stomach or digest food, which led to severe nutrient deficiencies. My state of health truly frightened me. Injectable prescription medications weren't helping, and I was getting worse. Eating organ meats was crucial for me to correct my anemia and restore my vitamin deficiencies. I steadily got stronger and began lifting and taking a holistic approach to my health. I exercised, took my circadian health seriously, avoided stress, cut out environmental toxins, and focused on calorie-dense and nourishing whole foods. Home-cooked organs, especially liver and heart, remain a staple to this day. A year living like this gave me a new lease on life. My brother and I want to help anyone who's in the same position I was in 3 years ago. Organ meats are crucial for building a baseline for your body to begin to heal from. Addressing the deficiencies will allow the inflammation to begin to subside. But organs are a bit weird, so we started nose-to-tail provisions.
It's dinner time on the East Coast in less than an hour. People are going to die.
Sir, we've got a boy on the hotline who says he might know something.
Who is this?
My name isn't important. What matters is that the answer is in the pyramid.
The pyramid? That's ancient stuff you're talking about. Are you sure? Bring up the pyramid.
What is it? What is it for?
We built the pyramid a long time ago to illustrate how much people should eat of the 4 basic food groups. Sir, we abandoned the pyramid when Michelle Obama got involved. The pyramid doesn't work. We've already tried it.
It's upside down.
What?
Sir, the pyramid is upside down.
Turn the pyramid upside down. You can't be serious. That would put butter and fat at the top of the damn food pyramid! This is not FDA approved! It's dinner time on the East Coast in 10 minutes. Now do it! Sir, we've got a match.
Nutrition is stabilizing!
We've got a well-balanced vaccine, sir! Get the president on the phone. Tell him have some steak with his butter.
This was a case-controlled study. So in this study, 63 patients who presented with constipation were recruited, and high and low fibre diets were compared in these patients. And this also included a zero fibre diet that required the complete cessation of all vegetables, cereals, fruits, wholemeal breads, and rice. So this graph here represents the percentage of study participants before the study suffering from each of the symptoms listed on the right side. So you can see, before the study started, all of them had constipation and strain opening their bowels, and a number also experienced bloating, bleeding, and pain. And when the study participants, those who went on a high fibre diet, we can see that the proportion suffering symptoms actually increased, especially bloating. So then there was a reduced fibre arm. And what you can see here is that those on the reduced fibre diet actually demonstrated a modest reduction in symptoms. So the question is, what happened to those, the majority of those in the study, who had zero fibre in their diet? This is not a mistake. I didn't just forget to put something in the slide there. Now, not one patient on the zero fibre diet had any symptoms. That's quite astonishing, really. And these findings were highly statistically significant, highly. They weren't due to random chance. Now, just out of interest, every single person in the low zero fibre group ended up having one bowel action per day, every day. How did this compare to those in the high fibre group? One bowel action on average every 6.83 days. Still think that fibre is good for constipation? So to understand why fibre reduces constipation and gives such striking results, let's look at the diagnostic criteria that we as doctors use to diagnose functional constipation. And you'll note that each one of these criterion relates to ease of passage of stool through the anal sphincter, which is quite logical, really. Now, fibre, especially insoluble fibre, the kind you have in wheat bran, has long been heralded for its ability to bulk the stool, to make it bigger. But when you think about it logically, is making something bigger really the solution when you're trying to pass it through a small hole? So packing the rectum with faeces actually makes it harder to expel the fecal matter. So using fibre to help constipation is analogous to adding more cars to fix a traffic jam. But that's not the only argument. People say, well, it also moistens the stool. Except it doesn't. It's been long known and well understood that stool moisture does not vary regardless of how much fibre or how much water you consume. Fibre does not moisten the stool. And while it's not technically a diagnostic feature of constipation, bloating is a known issue that many people understand is related to excess consumption of fibre. And the reason for this is because it doesn't get digested in the small bowel. Remember, that's a definition of fibre. It's not able to be digested. So it passes down to the large bowel, which has a large bacterial population. And then these bacteria can ferment the fibre, especially the soluble fibre. And they produce something called short-chain fatty acids, which is heralded as being one of the things which it provides health benefits through. But in the process of this, they also produce gases, such as hydrogen. And given that the volume of the whole gastrointestinal tract is only about 1 litre, it only takes a relatively modest amount of gas production before you start feeling bloated and start having an element of abdominal pain. And anybody who lived through the 1980s, anybody remember the bran craze? You can probably attest to that. So what we're left with is that when we look at the best evidence available, fibre worsens constipation, it causes bloating, and does absolutely nothing to moisten our faeces.
I have done 7,500 open heart surgeries. For 8 consecutive years, I was the top doctor in Phoenix Magazine. I remember as a medical student going to a convention and I ordered liver. And one of the cardiologists said, "You can't have liver, it has lots of cholesterol." So the focus from then on was all about cholesterol. And cholesterol was the cause of heart disease. But I began to notice that my patients, most of them had normal cholesterol. Even if they came back for another operation, they had normal cholesterol. Statin drugs, we were told that they would prevent heart disease. We were told that they would reverse heart disease. When I was in medical school, if an article appeared in a medical journal, it was gospel. There is now a website called Retraction Watch, which publishes retracted studies every day. Even the editors of the major journals are discrediting everything. And last year, between 250,000 and 400,000 people died from medication errors. And all this in an era which we're calling evidence-based medicine, in an era of what we're calling precision medicine. We have cholesterol drugs. The commercials on TV say 36% reduction in heart attack risk. Well, the actual real reduction is less than 1%.
But I was still taking a foolish risk with my cholesterol. Anyone with high cholesterol may be at increased risk of heart attack. Diet and exercise weren't enough for me. I stopped kidding myself.
So what did mainstream medicine do? The answer is money. They asked the question, what medication can we give to make another $1 billion? It's not your doctor's fault. Every decision your doctor can make is monitored by somebody. Your doctor has to follow the rules. If I had a patient who came in with elevated cholesterol and I did not prescribe a statin, I'm actually guilty of malpractice by today's standards. The most common thing that happens in America today is high blood sugar. High blood sugar is the primary driver of heart disease, of Alzheimer's, of arthritis, of our other degenerative diseases. And so it's all about sugar and almost nothing to do with cholesterol. The key to good health is to control your blood sugar, is to control your blood sugar, is to control your blood sugar.
Doing in terms of building muscle?
Yeah. So yeah, eating meat is basically my entire workout plan at the moment. I haven't actually been in the gym in many, many months. I probably haven't worked out, regularly, like on a multiple times a week basis, in actually a year.
So let's get right to the meat of the argument, Dr. Chafee. Is vegan best?
I wouldn't think so. I think all the best evidence shows that humans evolved as carnivores. But we also need to remember that our brains are made out of fat. About 70-80% of the solid matter of our brain is fat and cholesterol. Okay, and 20% of that fat is DHA. Right. These are fats that only exist in animal products. Another bit of a clue that we really need animal products in our diet. Fatty acids can't cross the blood-brain barrier. So how do we make a brain out of fat if we can't actually get fat into our brain? Well, ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier, and then they can reconstitute into fatty acids in our brain, and then get developed and grown into new synapses, structural components of neurons, and they can rebuild and regrow these different connections throughout the brain, which is very important. If you stop doing that, you stop building and maintaining these connections, you will slip into senility, and you'll sort of slowly lose your faculties, and it's a very, very horrible thing to watch. Our brains need a certain amount of dopamine, serotonin, and so forth. I'm sure Dr. Palmer talks a lot about how that is influenced by the things we eat at the level of the gut and produced and sent up to our brain. But also when you're in a state of inflammation, just chronic inflammation, this actually suppresses your body's ability to make and use dopamine. I think it's very, very clear. And you see in vegan populations, mental disorders and other diseases, they're much more prevalent, autoimmune issues as well. And autism is much more prevalent in vegan and vegetarian households. I think there's a direct causal link to that, eating the wrong thing and getting the wrong problem. Information is right there. It's right there in front of us. And it's just we just aren't looking at it.
At any point in your lives, go vegetarian or anything like that? At any point?
No. No, I've always been very big on meat. Like one time, and I just encourage people to just don't take everything at face value. The recommendations for the last 50 years have only gotten people more and more sick. The obesity rate has tripled, heart disease tripled, stroke rates tripled, cancer rates have tripled. Type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even neurodevelopmental delays such as autism have increased exponentially. They almost didn't exist before that. Now they're the only things we treat, and they all increased at the exact same time. So there's something going on here. There's something going on environmentally. I think that has to do with our diet, and I think that that's demonstrated by this reversible nature of these issues. Even autism, people are treating their kids by putting them on a ketogenic diet, and their kids are doing much better. There are treatment groups that are using ketogenic diet for that as well. There's a study that came out of Texas A&M showing causation between a lack of carnitine and autism, and and that showed up in the vegan and vegetarian populations because there's no carnitine in plants or fungus, and so you have to get it from meat if you're deficient in it. Most people make carnitine, but not everyone does, or they don't make enough of it. And so if you're in that category and you're not eating meat, or you're not eating red meat that has the most abundant supply of carnitine, which is the first thing that vegetarians get rid of, and you're genetically susceptible, then you'll set yourself up for disaster. And there's a reversible nature there. When people start eating a different way, the problems change. And so I just think that encourage people just to think about it and to maybe try something different and just see for themselves. 30 days out of your life, if you can radically change your health, is nothing. It's absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. And so just try it, see for yourself, and see what you think.
Well, we appreciate you encouraging us towards a healthier lifestyle and a better journey. And I encourage all of you to find Dr. Chafee, his podcast, share him, and of course, share my show. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the alert bell so you can be